My talk today is titled The Sequence of the Creative Order. Catchy title, don't you think? There is a sequence in how we create. Whether we know it or not, there is a sequence, and it's always happening because we are continually creating. For those of you that have been around the science of mind for a while, if you've taken classes, you'll recognize this symbol. We call it the science of mind teaching symbol. The circle on the outside represents God, the infinity of spirit, that it is everywhere, not just in one place, not more concentrated in one place than another, but it's everywhere equally. And so, if you've studied this, many of you know that we'll talk about the top part of the circle being the seed. Sometimes we talk about it being our thought or our seed thought. We plant that seed into the center section, which is the soil. Sometimes we call that the creative medium. I like to think of that as that's our level of belief. And whatever thought we put into our level of belief, that's what's going to create the plant or the manifestation of what we see in life. And so when we talk about the sequence of the creative order, what we do is we always have a thought, we put it into our life, and then we allow that to come forth in what it's manifesting. Another way to think about this is spirit being the top part of the circle here. Spirit will excite, will inspire our soul. That piece of us, that personal part of us that connects with spirit. And from that, our body is created. Our manifestation is created. So there's many different terms that we can use for this, but it is the creative process. In our teaching, we know that it's done unto us as we believe. And that's what this creative process is showing us. Whatever thoughts we have that we put into our life, that we speak forth, that we take into our heart, into our mind, into our soul, that's what's going to be created in our life, in our experience before us. In the textbook, Living the Science of Mind, on page 199, Ernest says, the principle of science of mind is exact and mathematical, while the use of it is personal. So this is a big deal for us, is to understand that we can take this power and we can use it personally to create the life we want. We're not at somebody else's whim in creating our life. We get to create it the way we want it. I like the graphic that I found here from Glinda, the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz. She said, "You've always had the power, my dear. You've had it all along." We have the power to create the life we want. We've had that power all along. And guess what? We have been creating our lives all along. Are we creating consciously? Are we creating what we want? Or are we creating something other than what we want? It's our choice. We get to choose where our minds go. Louise Hay, who was a great teacher, she also was a Science of Mind minister, by the way, said, we have to train ourselves to know what we're thinking. And so if we're aware of what it is we're thinking, conscious of that, then we can look at, do we like what we're thinking? And is that what we want to show up in our life? Or do we need to change that? You see, if we live on autopilot, if we're just responding to things that happen the way we've always responded, we're always going to get what we've always gotten. So we want to be awake, be aware, train our minds to know what it is that we're thinking. Louise said, every thought creates your life. Do you know what you're creating? For many people, they may have thoughts that are not really what they want to create. And so we get to choose to be aware of that and then to create what it is we want. Any thought we have is going to come back to us like a boomerang. So if we put out good thoughts, we're going to get good things back. If we put out negative thoughts, we're going to get negative things back. It's the way the universe works, that law of creative order. So being aware of what it is that we want gives us the ability to really focus the law in the manner we want to use it. Ernest Holmes, as well as Louise Hay, both said, "This is very simple. It's a simple philosophy. But," they said, "it's not easy. When life happens to you, it's not easy to think the positive thoughts. We have to train ourselves to be aware of that, to catch that, and to move toward that positive, to look for that in life." Another way Ernest said this is, one can learn to control his destiny if he learns to control his thoughts. So we really get that chance to control what we have going on in our lives. In Living the Science of Mind, page 200, it says, "Throughout the Bible and all sacred books, we find the same idea that the word acting as law produces a definite result. But right here, we must remember that the word is not something that speaks itself." So what that's saying to me is, Spirit is not speaking the word for us. We get to choose. What is the word that we want to have spoken for us? Last week, Phil Meyer did a great job at talking about the first two creation stories in the Bible and how God spoke the word, and that's what brought the creation into being. So now, we're not creating that world that God created, but we're creating our own world through the words that we speak, through the thoughts that we think. We are continually creating. Are you creating what it is you want? This graphic, every time we speak, we are prophesying our future. So what we say is what we're going to see. And are we using this constructively? This is the mechanical part of the law being God is, or Spirit is, love and law. So there is this loving part that we talk about a lot, and we like to be love and show love. And then there's the mechanical part, that whatever we speak our word for, that's what's going to happen. And so living with that balance of love and law, knowing that we will create, are we conscious of what we're creating? That's our choice. The key here is to find that alignment with Spirit, to be aware of what we are being called to do, and to find that infinite, unconditional love that God has for us. And out of that infinite, unconditional love, create unlimited potential for our lives. For there are so many things that we can do, that we can be, that we can have. And it's our choice. Are we open to that? Are we open to more and more in our lives? That's our choice. So as Louise Hay looks at how do we create and what we're doing to create, she recommends for us that we do some mirror work. So she says, get up in the morning, get out of bed, go into your bathroom, and say to yourself, looking in the mirror, look in your eyes in the mirror, and say, I love you. I love you. I love you. It may be uncomfortable at first, but if you say that to yourself, say it in the morning when you get up, say it in the evening before you go to bed. I love you. your life will change. Because you'll learn to start accepting yourself, to start being the fullness of who you are, to recognize your own self-worth. And that's what makes it the life changer, is when we recognize our own self-worth and that we have something to be and to do and to give to the world. So loving ourselves is the first step in that creative order of creating the world that we want to see and live in. Louise said, it doesn't matter if you say, I love you, or if you use some other positive statement. The universe will find a way to bring that about in your life. So even if you don't believe it at first, she says, keep saying it, because the universe will find a way to make that happen. The universe can only say yes. And I like to think that the universe says, I can do that. When I make a statement, that the universe, Spirit, God, is saying, yes, I can do that. And be clear, I'm not talking about a vanity here, where we're loving each other, loving ourselves narcissistically. I'm talking about a healthy self-love to recognize our own self-worth. I like to hold before myself the thought that only good lies before me. And I would invite you to consider that for yourself. That you can say to yourself, in all situations, only good lies before me. We talk about being positive, about looking for the blessing in everything that occurs. And so having this thought that only good lies before me allows us to look for that good, to remind us that we have that ability to live in the positive. I want to be clear that when I talk about seeing the good, loving the things that happen in our lives, loving ourselves, that I want to be practical here. Life is not always fair. And when we look at things in life, we think, because that's what we like, is that things will be just and fair. And sometimes life just isn't fair. Mark Nepo writes about, he's an author and a poet, and he talks about how life is not always fair. Sometimes the termites eat the foundation of your house, and it falls down. Sometimes the wave swamps your little boat, and you find yourself upside down. The errant stone flies up from the road and breaks your windshield. And I like the way he says this, because he says, the molecules of experience do not understand what's fair. They just bombard us in an endless cosmic dance. And so we see that endless cosmic dance happening all the time. I found this graphic. If you expect the world to be fair with you because you are fair, you're fooling yourself. That's like expecting the lion not to eat you because you don't eat it. So this is why it's important for us to remember what Louise Hay said, to train yourself to think, to know what you're thinking. Train yourself to know what you're thinking. Am I thinking a positive thought? Am I thinking a negative thought? And you know what? If I think something and it's negative, I can unthink it. I can choose to change that thought and bring in something positive for myself. I can look for the good that the universe has in life. And when I look for that good, then I'm going to find that. And I'll see it all around me as I open to it. You see, we're always activating this law, the law of life. And as we activate it, we can bring it back to be love, to be goodness, because that's what we choose to see. To know that whatever lies before us, good will come from it. Only good can come from it. I have a final quote from Ernest Holmes. It's one of my favorite. He says, "When nothing proceeds from you that you would not want returned to you, then you are living in your heaven." When nothing proceeds from you that you would not want returned to you, then you are living in your heaven. That's how we consciously choose to create and use the creative order in our lives. To see the good, to experience the good, and to know that no matter what, only good can come from whatever lies before us.